Come in morning, Debra joined.
वो नहीं पता वर्षा मैडम से
Hi, good morning. Just wait for 2 minutes, then we'll start, okay? Okay, so let us start. So just to understand and explain you, I think I have given some practice exercises, if I'm not wrong. I don't know, I remember, but I'm not sure. Can anybody tell me what was the last I have given? Something I remember, but I'm not getting it. So can anybody explain me?
Hi, Samir.
Hi, Deepika.
So last time you had given 3 scenarios for us to, to do the lab, to create domain user and provide access to launch EC2 instance. On particular
All done. All 3 scenarios completed.
One is fine, but creating billing alarm for $10 and assign to AD user, that is not done. And EC2 instance down alerts and notification, that is also not done.
Okay, no problem. But the IAM part, you already did the exercise, right? Like creating AD, configuring
Yes.
directory services and all those things, you already tested it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So 1 second. Okay. Just a minute. Okay. So you understood the roles also, right? Last time we explained about the roles. What is the you have created the role like directory service role and other things, right? Do you remember?
Yeah, Samir.
Yeah. Okay. So there is a few things are left in the IAM. If we complete that, it will be done. So once the IAM is done, then we can move into the next chapter. So let me share my screen and. So we completed about the dashboard, like creating a URL. We completed about user creation in the IAM, right? I believe you remembered last time we did it, right? Then roles also we did it. We created some role, directory service role, if I remember correctly, right? And EC2 role we configured, network role we configured. Then we also tested the policies, right? How to create the policy and how to upload the policy and how to attach the policy. We already tested it, right? When you create the users, you have seen, right? When you configure the IAM lab, that time you have assigned some policies. I hope you remember that, correct? And the last 2 things which was pending, that is called as identity providers and account settings. These 2 things are something which is pending from IAM. Access report, something which you learn when you get into the advanced level where you define service control policies and all. But as an IAM part, groups, users, roles, policies, and you learned about root user, you learned about IAM user, and then you learned about the domain user, correct?
Sir, policy was not done.
Pardon?
Policy was not done.
You people didn't assign policies created. You are not done.
No, sir.
Yeah, customized policy, right?
Yeah, in the IAM you went.
Yes, yes.
You
Yeah, yeah.
see,
Sure.
I'm not sure whether you went here. You some okay, Samir. These all things you assign. No, attach the policies.
Yes, yes.
I
Yeah, we
remember you
did. I
done.
think the
We can.
billing and all, right? I think we did.
Yeah.
Samir, we have used the existing policy, but we did not create not created and assigned.
Create policy that day I showed already. Okay, let me say. So if you want to create a policy, go and say create a policy, which service you want to create. Let's assume if you are good in EC2, you can go whatever the policy you want. You can search for the policy. You can say EC2 and select. And what is that actions you want to perform? All EC2 actions you want, or you want to list, or you want to read, or you want to write. If I'm saying all, then which is nothing but star mark, it will select everything. And it's asking for the resources for in a specific resource or all resources. If I say all resources, scroll down and say next. Next. Let's assume you want to give any name. Give a name. Test EC2 full. Give a name. Scroll down. Create policy. This is your custom policy. Now you want to attach that policy. Go to the users here. Click on that Samir, whichever the user you want. Add permissions. Attach existing policies directly. What is the policy name we are given now?
Yes, EC2.
Test. Select that it's already created here. Customer managed. Can you see this? Right?
Yes, sir.
So already by default, one JSON rule will get created. So you no need to do anything. So if you click on the JSON tab, JSON, so here it is already created. Okay. Now people who has the Java knowledge, they can directly write the code. Who don't know, they can directly go with the default one and they can create. And add permissions, attach, type test, enter and select this. Next review, add permissions. That's it. You have attached the customized one. You don't want to use the default one, you can delete or you can detach and you can attach the one what you need. Now you want to customize further, you can say JSON. You can create JSON policies. You can define JSON policies, what policies you want to define, and then you can, you can update accordingly, right? So JSON policies, IAM. So suppose let's assume you want to define a load balancer policy, ELB security policy, or you want to define, let's assume you want to define S3 policies. You can say S3 policy, S3 log policy. You can say S3 log bucket policy, whatever you want. So by default, policies will be enabled. You can directly use these policies with the, whatever is available in the market and you can do it. No, you want to write by yourself, then you should have a learning on the JSON. If you know JSON, JavaScripting, then you can do it. Very pretty much easy concept here. So for the AWS, what it did is that already everything ready-made, Amazon has provided you everything. So you really no need to do any kind of a homework or anything. There are so many policies are there. If you go to add permissions, if you say attach existing policies directly, you will find 649 policies are there. For every service, there is a policies is there. For EC2 service, Linux service, for your S3 service, for the EFS service, every service, there are policies are there. You can take it from there. You can optimize your policies and you can use it. Not an issue at all. So it's all about, if you want to create a policy, your own policy, just click on it and say create policy and select the service action. No, you don't want to go with the graphical editor. You want to write by yourself, go to JSON and write the statement and you can create the policy. No, you want to import something, you can import. All options are available for your policies. Okay.
Samir, if I want to create a merge a policy like EC2, S3 and networking,
can-
then can I create? There is an option to select all option.
No, you can see when you create a policy, right? Choose a service. Okay. So you are saying EC2 selected. Okay. And you are saying, okay. Now this is an EC2. Okay. Or you want to enter service manually, you can enter the service whatever you want. Okay. Now you want to add S3. Okay. You can select S3, right? You can create like this. You want to create, you can create and you can do it. Now you say that I don't want like this and I want to make a merger of the policy and I want to do it, then that is only possible with your JSON. You write the code by merging it. Okay. If you have a coding knowledge, you can write you can create a policy, you can write the JSON policy with the merger. That is possible. But if you want to go with the graphical, you can go and say create policy. You can create the service, which policy you want to create the service, define that services, and then you can use it. Understood?
Hi, Samir.
Samir, can I add multiple services in a single policy?
That's what I'm saying. You can do it, but only dependency that you can do it with the JSON, not directly with the graphical editor. Yes, somebody was asking other question.
Hi, Samir. Nanjunda here.
Yeah, Nanjinda, tell me.
Samir, I just want to know, last time you given 3 scenarios, right?
Mhm.
In that, everything was okay, but one slight thing is that you just mentioned only for specific region. Like, I was not getting like only how to give for specific per region, EC2 instance access. I just created till EC2, but how to make as access only for particular region?
Region, when you say create policy, choose a service. Let's assume EC2. Go here. Resources, all EC2.
Okay.
Resources. So you have this, right?
Right.
1 second. 1 second. There will be an add ARN is there, no? Okay. So there are ARNs is there, Amazon resource name. Okay. So for example, if I say, all resources, by default, it will be applicable for everything. Okay. When I say specific and I can add ARN. So when you add ARN, right? So list ARNs manually or ARN editor. Here, region you need to provide.
Okay.
Like AP South 1. Understood, right? Account. So here capacity is one example I'm just telling you. Okay. So when you provide region, it will only applicable for that particular region only. It will not be applicable for all the regions. So you need to add with the ARNs. ARNs are nothing but Amazon resource name. So there you need to define it, how you want to define.
Okay. Like thing is what you're saying is,
so if you say star, if you say star, means
all locations.
All locations.
Okay. Thing is what you're saying, I just want to create a policy.
Yes.
And I just want to attach to that AD users, right?
Correct. So you just need to, what you need to do is that if you want to locate only for particular location, you need to create an ARN with the location name. You should not say star or all actions. When you say star, it is for everything.
Okay. And third instance, like you are given easy to instant downloaders. I just want to create a CloudWatch, right?
Yeah, for that you need to go to CloudWatch, create an alarm, and apply that alarm to the instance. If you don't do that, also fine. Anyways, when I teach you the CloudWatch, that time you can do it.
Okay, okay, fine, sure.
For both the scenarios, we need to use CloudWatch, I guess, for billing alarm and for
Yes,
note down alerts.
you are right. So if I go here, just see quickly, because you asked, I'm showing you. Click on billing here. Okay, on the left, okay, I got a good bill, 63 rupees, no problem. Okay, scroll down. Where is this? CloudWatch. Okay, you need to go to CloudWatch, and on the left side you will find one tab called billing. Can you see this billing?
Right.
Okay, so here you should say create alarm. Okay, now scroll down. $10, put $10. Okay, and currency USD. Okay, and say next. And I'm not defining any action. If you want to put it, you want to get an email ID, just say create a topic, and I will say hi Bill. Okay, and give your email ID. Underscore. Okay.
No hyphens and no underscores.
No, 1 second. 1 second. Previous. Okay, next. Usage bill, and I'll say here, Nanjin, the email kudi.
Nanju 619.
NANGU.
Yeah, right. 619.
619
@gmail.com.
@gmail.com. Okay, I create topic. Okay, and say next. Give a name, billing. Okay, next. Done. Okay, Nanju, if you go to your email ID, you might have got one email. Just check no once.
So,
But he will receive the email when that condition is satisfied, right?
No, that is once he activates. First of all, he need to activate to get the
yes,
message.
I just got a confirmation, like confirm subscription.
Yeah, click on confirm subscribe.
Yes. Done, Samir.
Okay, now once he subscribed, no, so whenever I complete my $10, you will get a message.
Oh, okay.
Okay, because now I have integrated him with his email ID and he subscribed it. The moment he unsubscribe it, it will stop getting it.
Samir, what you're coming to say is like CloudWatch, it's a basic on topic. Like now, ಯಾವ topic ನಾವು select ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ monitor ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ತಾನೆ.
Yes. So when you select the topic and when you create a topic and when you create the rule, automatically it will go to that particular stuff.
Okay. First service we have to select and then the CloudWatch.
Yes, first you need to go to services, go to CloudWatch, select billing, define what is the value you want, and you can apply for it. So remember one thing, I have showed you how to generate the billing and alert with the email notification to his email ID. But I asked the scenario different. If you remember carefully, I told my AD user should get it. You understood? So you need to give the email ID of your AD user, not this user.
Right.
Not nanju@gmail.com. Okay, but we do not have that AD user email ID. That's the reason for the testing purpose I have given Nanjunda's email ID. You understand what I'm trying to tell you, Deepika?
Can you repeat again?
Okay. See, the scenario what we have given is that we said that billing should go to Active Directory user, correct?
Yes.
But Active Directory user, if I want to give, I should have an email ID of Active Directory user, correct? We don't have the Active Directory user ID, user email ID. That's the reason what I did is that I have used Nanjunda's email ID for the billing access, means to get the bills, because it's a working email ID. You should have a working email ID, then only you can integrate.
Samir, in that case, we have to define each and every resource email ID. Can
So
we
see,
have,
in
can
general, in production, we don't give any person email ID. We generally give in general, like if it is a billing stuff of billing kind of an alerts and all, they will give it to the account management team. If it is normal note down alerts like Windows server went down or Linux server went down, they will give it to Wintel team. There will be team DL will be there, no team group @ so and so xyzgroup.com. So that what will happen is that all alerts will go to that particular group, and whoever is working in that time, they will get the notification and they'll start working on it.
Okay, so can we do like we have a AD group? Can we assign a whole AD group, like 100 people are in AD group?
AD group, no. AD group email ID, if you use it, all that whoever is that part of that 100 members in that AD group will get the messages.
Can we add multiple email IDs?
Pardon?
Can we assign multiple email IDs?
No, one single email ID. Either it can be a group email ID or it can be a single email ID.
If it is a shared mail, we can give it.
Yes. Okay. Anyways, so coming back to our topic. Okay. So groups, users, roles, policies, and very important thing is that identity providers. So how many people know what is an identity provider and why do we need an identity provider in AWS? Any idea?
What is difference between identity provider and roles? Is it completely different?
Yeah, identity provider is different, role is different, user is different.
Identity. Is it vendors?
Just think about it.
I think it provides identity of the outside users.
Okay, so identity provider is nothing but let me explain you. So basically, identity provider, what it does is that it creates and maintains your all kinds of authentication services which relies on the application. So basically, we say that federation identity and all. So single sign-on is also one of the solution for an identity provider. So I think you all people know what is the advantage of having the single sign-on in your organization. Single sign-on is nothing but it's an authentication process which allows the user to log in with a single ID and password to any of your different applications and all. So means once the moment you log in, you will be able to access all your application because it uses the same password, right, to connect. Correct or not? In your office, there is SSO. If you log in with your company account, then automatically for all the applications, again, you no need to put the manually password, correct? Because it will automatically allow you to log in and connect. Have you observed it? Single sign-on?
Like we can log into our system and then log into our web mail and everything which is connected to that.
Correct. Very good. So automatically it will allow. So how is it is allowing automatically to all the users? That is the question. So here what you need to understand is that once the federation is done, means once the authentication is done, it wants to allow automatically, which is nothing but it is identity provider is a fellow who is identity means who is finding the authentication process And because your authentication, whatever the username password is there in the store, it is getting auto authenticated with the kind of a identity provider. So identity provider, what it will do is that there are so many different identity providers are there. SAML is one of the identity provider. Security assertion markup language, we say. OpenID Connect is one more provider, which is again a domain model, model which they use. So they use RESTful HTTP APIs. And SAML, as I told you, that's also one of the method. It's also one of the service provider, which is also for the authentication. And there is one more Indie Auth identity providers. One more one more authentication provider. These are the three different identity providers which are available in the market. So generally what your organization will do is that they will integrate with this identity provider, so that what happens is that whenever they do the single sign on, whenever they log in, they no need to give any kind of a details. Automatically with the help of the login, they can log in and they can they can use the same username and password and they can connect. Means when the moment they put the username and password, what will happen is that it simply provides the list of identities and that service has, and it checks the details, whether the user belongs to that particular requirement, and it will check whether is it it is linked with any kind of a domain or not, and it will pass on the services, so that it doesn't need any kind of a further authentication and all, because it is already been IDP is already have that information about your user details and everything. So this identity provider, you are right now, most of the companies are using this identity provider for a simple understanding. Let me tell you. Let's take, if you are able to see my screen, let's go to pluralsight.com. Just take an example. Okay. Do you know all these people know pluralsight.com?
Yes.
Okay. This is one site, one website which provides the trainings and other things and all. Okay. So there is an option called sign in. Can you see this? Okay. So sign in with skills. I'm just clicking. So can you see this here? Sign in with company or school, one option came.
Yeah.
Okay. I clicked on sign in with company or school. Okay. Now here I can give my company details. Means I can give the company email ID and password. The moment I give the company email ID and the company domain ID or a domain name or a company URL, automatically what it will do is that it will try to authenticate and it will try to authorize without any problems. I no need to do anything. So if my laptop is already been authenticated, means if my laptop is already having a domain login, then I no need to worry. So the moment I say www. Let's assume I'll say capgemini.com. Okay. If my laptop already logged in with my Capgemini login credentials, then the moment I click on sign in, automatically it will redirect. Means I will be able to access this particular application. But now I'm not able to access this application. Why? Because now this is redirecting me to, can you see this? SSO of capgemini.com, which means that it is trying to get the identity information from where? Capgemini.com. So the moment I put my Capgemini email ID and password, what will happen? It will log in. But in identity provider, what exactly it means is that you can integrate your applications, your authentications with the help of your identity providers. Suppose in AWS, let's assume you are here in AWS, and if I create an identity provider for your centralized management access, single sign-on access. So what I can do is that I can create an identity provider, OpenID or SAML, or as I told you, add provider. You get an option, SAML or OpenID. These are the two things which are supported. So either you can use SAML or either you can use OpenID. Now you might get it out, sir. What is this SAML or what is this OpenID. So these two are the two different identity providers. SAML is basically used for Active Directory, means people who are having the AD environment in their organization, they generally use the SAML as an identity provider. People who doesn't have an Active Directory, they are morely working on SaaS based applications like Google or Salesforce or third party. They can directly go and configure their OpenID. Okay, so SAML is nothing but, as I told you, it is an authentication system which helps single sign-on to work with the SAML provider. So whenever you have the SAML provider, your SSO will be integrated with this SAML provider. So the advantage what you get is that any kind of a single sign-on integration, if you want to do with AD, that time you can go with this SAML. And OpenID, as I told you, Google, Salesforce, or third party, or anything, you can go with this, OpenID and other things. So to do this or to configure, first thing is that you should have your own AD environment, and then you can configure it. Okay, just a second, 1 second. Yeah, so SAML and OpenID, as I told you, right? So these two are the identity providers which will be available. So means Amazon is giving you. So what you need to do is that if you want to integrate or if you want to configure it, then what you need to do is that you need to have an Active Directory, and with the help of that Active Directory, or if you are planning for the single sign-on option, you can create. This can be used for your own applications. This can be used for your Android based applications. You can use for iOS application. For any kind of an application also it will support, but however you need to create the identity roles for those things, and then you can configure. So here you can give the the identity provider name, what identity provider you're using, for what application you are configuring. Then once you define that name, and like test 1 2 3 or whatever it is, then basically thing is that you need to upload your metadata, which is nothing but your file, XML file about your IDP. Means once you have your domain controller, and once application, whatever the application you are planning to use, that particular identity file we need to upload. Once you upload and we configure it, then what will happen is that whenever that URL, whenever the user types the URL, like any kind of an application URL, just now what we have seen, right, like pluralsight.com, then what will happen is that automatically with that particular his domain login, it will allow you to access it. Means it will not give you any trouble or any problem. So you understand, right? So basically the overall idea of identity provider is that which allows your single sign-on or any kind of an application to integrate and work with a single login without any kind of a further authentication method, because this identity provider is nothing but which is federating your user access. Okay, that is the purpose of your identity provider. So these identity providers, you have two options. One is, as I told you, one identity provider is for your Active Directory purpose, you can use for any application, internal application. Other one is OpenID. Now if you want to do this testing and all, for this you need to have your own domain, then you should have your own applications what you want to integrate. Then like for example here you have Pluralsight, right? So if you have that real-time application, then you need to create a metadata and you need to upload that data in your identity provider. Then it will allow you to configure your identity configuration. So that is how this will be helpful for you.
Samir, for application, how do I provide the metadata? Like you have asked to upload for whether
For that,
when we can
for
we
that
want.
first you need to have an application, what application you want, and then you need to create that AD Active Directory, and with that you need to configure that identity provider software, federated services you need to install in your AD as a service. Then that will generate one metadata, and in that it will ask you for the URL. You need to change, you need to whatever the URL you want to integrate that, like for example xyz.com, that you need to update and download that file and upload in this identity provider. That is when you can start using it. Okay. And then next thing, what we have a simple thing that is called as account settings. These are the basic things. Like suppose you want to change password policy, like you want 10 characters password policy, or you want to define at least one uppercase and one lowercase whenever the user is trying to apply the password, or you want to define password expiration, or you want to say that 120 days after that password should get expired. Like this, you can define certain password settings to your users. Now, this is for which user? This is for which users?
Local users,
Domain
local users, I think.
is
I
domain
am-
users or local users?
I am users.
This is only for the IAM user. So remember here, you will not be able to control the domain users here. You will be only controlling the
I am users.
IAM users. If you want to control the domain users, then I already showed you. Same thing. You need to create an Active Directory, log into the DNS configure, then go to AD users and computer. There in domain user configuration, you have something called as domain security policies. You need to configure there. Here you will not get those option of domain security policies and other things. Okay. So account settings will help you for generating this password policies and STS and activating the deactivating the regions here with the endpoints. All these options you get here in the local user services, which will be helpful. Understood, right?
Samir, mostly we are we are working on AD users because the company always configure the AD.
Correct.
So this account setting is not useful because the IAM user is very less, 5, 6, or 10.
You are saying like that. There are so many companies, there are so many startups which they use the AWS for only applications and their own internal services. They don't maintain Active Directory and all. AD is for the enterprise organization. People like companies like IBM, HP, Dell, TCS, bigger organizations, they will use the ADs and all. There are some millions of startups and small scale companies which are running in AWS. You will not believe, more than 45 to 60,000 small companies are there who are using the IAM local users to manage their applications. Okay, for all those people, what will you do?
So in that case, how they can manage the user?
See, very simple. So let's assume you have started one company called as SEO and digital marketing company. You have 2 employees in your organization. You are managing some 150 websites. Will you create each and every website one user? Will you spend money for configuring the AD, Windows and all those things? Your just job is to create a website and host a website for the end customer. For that, all I need is that I need an AWS account and I need one more account for my user to manage that complete websites and all. He'll go and he'll create the user and he will configure it. So it depends on one use case to one use case, they will be doing. Yes.
Can you repeat the identity provider? It's not clear for me.
Who is this?
Simanta.
Simanta. Okay. So what is this identity provider? So again, I'm telling you, identity provider is nothing but if you have any kind of an application or if you want your single sign-on authentication to work, somebody should identify your credentials, correct? Somebody should say that, yes, this is the right person who is using my application, who is using this single sign-on to validate, right? This identity provider are of Amazon in general. There are 3 are there, but in general, Amazon is giving you one option, OpenID. Second one is called SAML. These two are the two different types of identity providers. So SAML is nothing but which is conjunction with your single sign-on for the with the profile of security assertion markup language. So for any kind of a domain security with single sign-on, if you want to do, SAML is one solution, and there's other solution called as OpenID. So what it will do is that both will participate in web browser SSO, means single sign-on authentication. So whenever the single sign-on should happen, this SAML will receive the authentication request from a receiving or a replying a party of a web browser. Means, for example, as I showed you, pluralsight.com. Pluralsight is nothing but a different domain, but you are using the Pluralsight with your own domain user credentials. Means Pluralsight is something XYZ party, but you as a, let's assume Pluralsight is XYZ and your company is, let's assume, IBM.com or a Capgemini.com. Now Capgemini fellow want to access an application called Pluralsight. Now the Pluralsight, if I want to access that application called Pluralsight, so what it should happen, basically it should authenticate the browser user principal. We say browser authentication should happen. So when the browser request is coming for the authentication, what it will do is that SAML, what it will do is that SAML will be purely relying on the authentication protocol. So what it will do is that the moment the response will come, automatically the SAML will check in its metadata. Yes, this particular URL, nothing but web browser URL, like suppose www.soandso.com is being embedded with my local authentication. Please proceed. Then single sign-on will work for those kind of application. So what all I mean to say is that in general, normally you will get username and password for your own domain, for your own application, no problem. Any third-party application or any kind of an application which involves the integration, that is where you need this identity provider. Either you can go with SAML or you can go with OpenID. But SAML is basically for AD-based authentication. OpenID is basically for third-party Google Apps, Salesforce, or any kind of a third-party authentication. Hope answered your question.
Means other than Active Directory permission, if I need any third-party access, you can configure the identity provider.
Yes, for any kind of a third party which wants to use your AD credentials to access and go through, then you need to integrate with your SAML identity provider.
Okay. Right.
Samir, regarding this ID, what do you mean by that only Google, Salesforce, these kind of teams can use OpenID? Means what is the difference between SAML and OpenID? I didn't understand.
OpenID Connect is an open standard. Okay, SAML is nothing but XML based standard. So both are a solution which provides the exchanging, the authentication and authorization. So both works for exchanging and authorizing the things. Okay, so basically this OpenID is good for all kinds of websites which are like shopping cart websites, YouTube, Facebook, all third party applications, like which like your like if you see this, if you go to Facebook or anything, when you log in, right, when you select that use your Gmail ID, if you click on it, it will automatically logs in you, right? You no need to again give the password. Do you remember, have you observed it?
Yes.
That is nothing but OpenID Connect. Okay, so OpenID Connect is basically meant for the applications. Okay, the applications like e-commerce applications, social networking applications, and websites, without having the login information and all. Okay, SAML is also similar method, but the difference, as a solution wise, the difference is that both are the same, the work wise both are the same, but SAML supports your LDAP protocol. LDAP is nothing but your Active Directory protocol, whereas OpenID supports your open source protocols, nothing but your third party application protocols and all supported with your OpenID. And as I told you, there is one more solution is also there. OAuth, we say OAuth, that is also one more solution. So these are the different identity providers for different use cases. So SAML is basically used for the AD based solution. That's the reason Active Directory, Federation services, if you want to integrate, you can use it. Third party applications or outside applications which are not part of your LDAP stuff and all, you can go with OpenID. So like these are different vendors, like different providers.
So, Samir, you want to say that when we log in the phone and there are different applications like Facebook or any other social network or any other IDs which depends on our Google ID, means when I log into the Google ID, we can directly able to log into Facebook or YouTube or something. So that depends on this kind of this open ID application.
Identity provider, what has been configured by your vendor. So for example, Facebook is there. When you log into facebook.com, there are two options. Either you can use facebook.com, and you can provide your email ID and password, and then you can say submit, right?
Yeah, right.
Other ways that use this email ID, right? The moment you say use this email ID, automatically it will allow you, correct? Have you observed or not?
Yes.
That is, when you say use my email ID, then that time it will not ask you your password. It will automatically locks you in. If
it automatically integrate with my Google
Yes.
ID and it
So
able
if
to
you
even
see here,
when I go to the browser, that is
So
also
for
we
example,
have
see now
observed.
here in my browser, I have my email ID integrated, right? So if I use this email ID, automatically I no need to put again my password, right? So whenever you want that kind of an integration for the single sign-on, then you need these kind of an identity providers. There are two types of identity providers: OpenID, SAML. SAML is
Samir, one more thing is when I open a Google and there is some dots are coming over there besides my ID. So they are different applications are already provided. So those are provided by those are configured by OpenID, right?
No, those configuration is not being configured for the with OpenID and all. OpenID is only exchanging the authentication information only. It doesn't do any configuration and all. So if let's assume my I logged in with Google Gmail ID. Okay. So let's say I'll say gmail.com. Okay. Now the moment I say gmail.com, now see loading Gmail. Did it ask me any password? No, right? So automatically it has taken my login to my Gmail ID without any kind of a password or anything. How? Because my browser is already been integrated with my email ID and it's allowing. Same way, just imagine if there is an application is there, some third party application is there. If that application has this Gmail ID access, so I no need to put again the password. The moment I say that use this Gmail ID, automatically that authentication exchange information will be there with your identity provider. It will allow you to authenticate. So whenever you need that kind of a solution, that time you need to go with this option.
Okay, got it.
Samir, can we conduct a lab for SAML?
No, you can't do that, because as I told you, right, you need to have your own application and you need to have the solution for that. Okay, so that is about your users, groups, roles, policies, identity providers, and account settings. Whatever is possible, I'll show you. What is not possible, I'll tell you before only. Okay. So if you want to do the migration from VMware to VM to AWS, possible. You want to do the online storage gateway solution, possible, which I already told you. What is possible, what is not possible? Certain things are dependencies there. Certain things are, we have dependency. Certain things we do not have the dependency. Based on that, we can do it.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah. Hello.
Hi, Samir.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yes.
Hi, Samir. Pratik this side. I just want to know, is this SAML interconnected with the browser cache?
Browser cache means not the complete cache. So basically, the authentication exchange information is only been cached.
Okay, so it means the authentication like username and password, it takes from cache, browser cache, right?
It doesn't store it. it
Okay.
has the internal, it doesn't store anything in the cache, it just exchanges.
Okay. Is there any flow diagram? How can it exchange?
I will send you that to your WhatsApp so you can just go through it.
Okay, okay, sure. Thank you.
Okay, so that is about your this thing. So like, you know, IAM, dashboard, access management, groups, users, roles, policies, identity providers, and account settings, access reports and all you learn in the next level. There you learn about service control policies. People who are trying to upgrade their into next knowledge, that is called as AWS Advanced Professional. There you'll understand about SCPs, configuring service control policies, assigning the service control policies to the organizations, organizational units, control towers. There you will get the more detailed knowledge about it. Okay. Now, just to continue this, there is Devesh and Shivling. I think few people are there from your batch, right? For you already it's all completed. So there is a lapse of load balancer, auto scaling, and other things, which we are starting on next Friday. That is next Sunday, 28th morning, 8:45 a.m. There you need to join for the full-fledged lab of load balancer, auto scaling, and all, for the people, like not for everyone, only for Devesh and Shivling and other people who have Vishal, who have completed the theory. So the other people, as it is, there is no change at all. Only this is for the Devesh and Shivling and other people, like the other batch which started at 11:30. So we have completed as of now EC2 networking. Nanjinda, tell me, EC2 networking and storage and IAM, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. In the EC2 networking, storage, IAM, any questions you have, any doubts as of now?
Samir, can you please share the link for that auto scaling and all next week before the start of the activity, so that if
Sure.
we can log in?
Yeah. Whoever wants to do the lab of the full-fledged auto scaling, load balancer and all, they can come, no problem. But I'm just talking about EC2 networking, storage, IAM. Any questions anybody has on these 4 chapters?
Samir, our 8 a.m. batch, we have not done storage.
No, Snehal, wait, hold on. Don't worry. I'm not talking about you. Okay.
Okay.
Anybody has any questions? Nanjunda, any doubts in these 4 topics? Before we go to database.
Hello.
Yeah.
Samir sir, I have a doubt in VPC pairing.
Okay. What is the doubt you have?
I've tried VPC pairing between 2 regions, but I'm not able to get access pinging.
Okay, so I think now anybody can help you easily, because VPC peering is not happening. Means what is that we need to see, guys? You can tell what is the troubleshooting steps we need to find out.
Check the route table around or internet gateway is there or not.
Can I do right now to share my screen?
Sure, share your screen, no problem. What's your name?
Nishant Jain.
Okay, I'm making you a host. You share your screen. I think I will not troubleshoot. This team, the complete team should troubleshoot.
Sure.
Are you sharing your screen?
Yes, I'm going to.
शिवलिंग जी अभी बताएंगे कैसा करना है प्रॉब्लम को.
Is my screen more visible to all?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
When did you did this lab? And
VPC peering, sir. I does day before yesterday.
Okay. But you didn't deleted the machines, huh?
No, I deleted.
Samir.
Yeah.
Yeah, Samir, actually, I did one lab storage gateway. That time I have created a VM on my laptop. So I have deleted, uninstalled the VM, but my laptop still is getting very slow and not working properly. Is there anything need to delete?
You just see the VMDK files is running in your laptop and the cache is running in your laptop. Delete all those things.
Okay, so after that, I think my laptop will back previous.
Yeah. If it is not back, क्या करेंगे? Format मार देंगे भाई.
Okay.
You are going to create, or you said it's already created? No.
Sir, I was created, but I deleted all.
Now you want to do it, VPC peering?
Yes.
It will take long time. It will take peering for 15-20 minutes.
Tomorrow I will done, and then we can check.
Yeah, what you can do is that you make it ready and tomorrow you show me what is not working, then I can help you. Okay.
Sure.
But if you do now, everyone will be waiting for that. They are thinking that, it is
Yes,
somewhere stuck to troubleshoot. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Just share the screen back. Okay. Can I ask the questions in these three topics of EC2 networking storage just to test you guys?
Yeah.
Okay.
Samir, the database part, we did not completed.
You can attend the same, you can continue with the same batch, no problem.
11:30, 10:30, right?
Yeah. Okay. So let me ask you the questions. Okay, just for a revision. Okay, so that before starting the database topic, let us have the question and answers. So for everyone, IAM we have completed, right? How to access a AWS CLI or user from AWS? I want to access or I want to troubleshoot something through AWS CLI. How do I do through AWS CLI? What is that I need to do?
You can just access through 15.
Did anybody tested how to connect through AWS CLI?
Yeah, we need to install the AWS command line in whatever the platform we are working on. And then through the token, we can access and then we can look it into the user.
Okay.
Or else we can use it Git bash.
Okay. So let me do one thing. Nanjunda, can you share your screen? I will give you the host.
Okay.
I will show you now. Next time you people just try to do this practice. Okay. Nishant, you just pass on the control to me, no? You are the still host. Nishant Jain, can you just pass on the make us host?
Just a minute, sir. From where I get the option, sir?
You will get an option. No, there more one option will be coming. In the participants, you can find my name, right?
Yes, sir.
Make host one option will be there.
Okay. Yes, sir. Done.
Okay. So I'm making Nanjun the host. Okay. Nanjunda, you are the host now. You can share your screen and we will just guide with an AWS CLI how to do the CLI part.
Samay, I think is it visible?
Yeah, it's visible. Minimize Madi. Just minimize it. Download the AWS CLI. Go to Google. See, remember guys, if whenever you want to work on AWS CLI, you need to have the AWS CLI downloaded and installed in your Windows or Linux machine. If it is a Windows machine, AWS CLI for Windows. If it is a Linux machine, type in Google AWS CLI for Linux. So I think this is a Windows machine. He's typing AWS CLI install Windows. That's it. Click on it and say enter. So yeah. So select that. Installing and updating. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So scroll down. AWS CLI for Windows. Yes. Latest version. Yeah. So it is downloaded. So it is getting installed. Hold on for a few minutes till it gets installed. Okay. You installed it, right?
Yes, yes.
I can't see the screen. Maybe everyone are able to see or I am not able to see.
No. Installing part we can't see.
Nanjunda, can you make full screen because I'm able to see only one screen.
1 second.
Are you sharing? Because I'm not able to see.
Like Samir, I'm not able to select all screens. Where to select all screens?
No, you can select the screen. No, a full screen will be there first.
Okay, I think is it visible now?
Yeah, now it is visible.
Okay.
You installed it?
Yeah, I'm installed it.
Okay, just open command prompt. Okay. So in the command prompt, what is that we need to do? You need to run a command called as AWS space configure. Enter. So it is asking for access key and secret key. See, whenever you want to connect with the AWS through command line, you always need this access key and secret key. Okay. So how do I provide this access key and secret key? So go back to your AWS management console.
Okay.
Go to the their sharp 66 is there. No. On the right side. Yeah. My security credentials. Yeah. Okay. Oh, you're not logged in into AWS.
Yes, Samir.
Okay. Now go to the third option, access key, secret key. Yeah. Create new access key. Yeah. Download key file. Okay. Open that. Okay. Copy that access key. Yeah. So go to your command prompt. Yes. Enter Madi. Enter.
Samir, we can give this right now. Once you have created IAM users, we'll be getting access key, right? ID.
Yeah. Through IAM user also you can do, but I'm just doing with the root users. Just click on enter. Okay. It's asking secret key. Put the secret key. Region name, what is that region name? AP-South-1.
Global, sir.
Global.
No. Click on the drop down. 1 second. Hold on.
Say US East 2.
No. Click on global. 1 second. Yeah. Scroll down once. Mumbai, AP-South-1. Type that. AP-South-1. No, South. SOU2H. TH. South. -1. Enter. Output format. Okay. Enter. Okay, so which means that now you are connected to your AWS. Okay, so if you want to know whether it is working or not, so we can run some commands. AWS EC2 describe instances. You can run that.
Samir, is it visible?
Yeah. What you are given?
I think hyphen instance.
Hyphen you have not given. No, you give the hyphen instances. AWS EC2 describe hyphen instances. Instance. Oh, you don't have any instance running?
No. 1 second. Stop.
You are not in the Mumbai region right now. The upside. We can create an instance. We can launch an instance through the.
Or else you do one thing. 1 second. Simple. Go to S3 once. You have any buckets?
Yes, Samir.
Okay. Okay. Do one thing. Go to the command prompt. Type AWS space S3 space LS. Showing no? Nanju.com is your domain, your bucket, no?
Yes.
Right? So you are able to see this, right? So with in your laptop, you just installed your CLI and you are able to access it, right? So anything, whenever, whatever you want to do through command line, through CLI, you can do. So CLI is a powerful tool which Amazon is providing you. So if you need the secret key and access key to log in and to do any kind of basic activities, troubleshooting, starting the instances, stopping the instances, basic activities. But remember here, you can't do all the services, all the things you can't do. Basic stuff which you can do. But if you want to do more deep dive in this CLI, then there is a specific course for this. It is there, like command line interface tool in only AWS CLI, mastering in AWS CLI, a separate service where it will only talk about the command line and all the commands. People who are having good Linux skill set can learn this, and it will be easy for them to understand and run this. But in general, if you want to do the basic kind of an activities, basic testing, creating, shutting down, logging, and all those things you can do, moving the files and all those basic activities, everything you can do through EC2 CLI or AWS CLI you can do. But if you're expecting to do high level troubleshooting or anything, or if you want to do as a stack or anything, you can do through there is one more service called as AWS CloudFormation, which is an Amazon service, which is a powerful service for self provisioning and all. The difference between CLI and the CloudFormation service is that AWS CLI, it is a powerful tool to run all kinds of commands and all those things, but you cannot do the failover or what is the rollback stuff and all. You can't do in the AWS CLI. Whatever you run the command, it gets executed. But the advantage of CloudFormation is that it is a JSON script what you're writing. So it is also does all the whatever you input the data, it will do. But there is an option that you can roll back your settings and changes and all those things. So that is one advantage what you get compared to your AWS CLI. So in AWS CLI, you can automate some of the actions, basic actions you can automate, and you can configure templates and creating the EC2 instances, monitoring the EC2 instances, basic set of EC2 part, basically, especially for the EC2 level services, it is very good, very good. But if you are expecting to work on all kinds of an automation of all kinds of services, then recommended best practice to use a service called as CloudFormation. So these two are the services which are very much available in AWS, either CLI or CloudFormation. So CloudFormation, which helps you for the deployments and other things and all, and CLI basically for all the kinds of commands and other stuff. So this is the one way. So in interview, they will ask you what is the purpose of CLI and what is the purpose of graphical management console. AWS management console, all graphical based activities you can do. CLI, you can use it for all kind of command line activities. And CloudFormation is nothing but a service where rollback is possible, and it works with JSON script. So all three are the three different services which are available in your AWS. Now the next question what they'll ask you is that how many secret key and access key can be created with a single user? Two, three, four?
Two only.
Can I use both at a time?
No.
No.
Can I use both secret key and access key at a time, or I need to make one active, one deactive? How it is?
One will be active and another one will be passive.
Correct. So you cannot use both active at a time. Okay. The next question. What are the other AWS resources which you can use for the accessibility? Means what are the other users you can use it?
Samir, I'm not able to understand your question.
what are the other AWS resources you can use for logging into AWS apart from CLI?
Like
Means
GUI,
means very simple.
console.
What is the alternative tool to log into your cloud environment other than your management console, graphical console?
There is an CLI SDK,
Mm-hmm.
and I think these two are.
Graphical
So
console.
AWS CLI for Linux, AWS CLI for Windows. You can log in through PuTTY. You can log in through AWS CMD and AWS SDK and Eclipse. These are the different types of tools what you can use it for your AWS. Okay. Now, what is the difference between okay, let me ask this. Can you tell me some of the services which are not specific on the region?
S3.
Okay.
Route 53.
Very good.
Route 53 and
IAM.
IAM.
Okay.
I think BPC. Oh, no.
Very good. IAM, Route 53.
CloudFront.
CloudFront, Web Application Firewall. Okay. Very good. And what is the difference between stopping and terminating the EC2 instance?
By stopping, it means you are not like deleting your instance. You just stopping. By terminating, the instance will get deleted.
Which is chargeable?
Which is chargeable means?
Stopping. Stopping is
chargeable.
Okay.
But
very good.
stopping will not charge, right? When we are running instance only, it will be charged.
No, it will be charged. Both running and stopping.
Terminate only will delete the instance. Stopping means we just stopping the instance will be live. Means anytime we can start the instance. That's why it is chargeable. And if we, as we are terminating it, that means we are deleting total the instances. That's why it is not non-chargeable.
Very good. Very good. What are the suppose we have S3, EBS and all we have, right? So what are the some major differences between your S3 and EBS?
S3 is stored for snapshot, basically. EBS is for log storage.
S3, you can store an object on the S3. S3 is an object based and EBS is a block based. Like if you want to install an operating system or something, you can't do in the S3. You have to take the EBS.
Okay, other than that,
we have not done with this S3 and EBS.
I know. No worries. Who has completed, they'll only answer. Only storage is what which you're not done. So I remember that, not to worry.
Okay.
S3 is for disaster recovery.
Okay.
S3 is for storage, like EBS is only for EBS, EC2 instances.
EC2 instance.
Yeah.
EBS is not a shared storage, whereas EFS is a shared storage.
And S3 uses HTTP protocol.
Very good. Okay, now let me ask you this question. Can I install Solaris's operating system in AWS? This is for everyone. Anybody can answer.
Solaris?
Yeah. I want to install Solaris in operating system in AWS. Is it possible?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, possible.
It's only possible if they have that
images
in AMI or in like market AMIs.
Answer is Solaris is currently not supported by AWS. Okay, because Solaris uses Spark processor architecture. What is the processor architecture which AWS supports? I told you in the first class.
Intel processor.
So that's the reason it is not supported. So do not blindly say yes. Okay. What about AX operating system? Will it
does it mean it won't support AIX and HPUX?
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm asking the next question is that AX is an operating system, right? Does it support AX?
So P5 architecture it won't support then.
Okay. AX does support in AWS?
I think no.
No.
Yes.
It's also not supported. Okay. What is the difference between availability zone and a region?
Region is a specific availability zone is like inside the region there are different types of locations where they make sure to give you the ability. Like in Mumbai there are 3 zones which we can say ability zone.
No, availability zone is nothing but a data center.
It's a physical data center, any location.
Region is the places where the
There
data
are
center
so
is
many.
located.
Region is something like Mumbai or.
Very good. Okay. What is the
There are so many availability zones in.
Yeah. So region is nothing but a location. Availability zones are nothing but data centers. What is the difference between NAT gateway and NAT instance? Why do I use and where do I use this NAT gateway and NAT instances? This is for everyone.
NAT instance is a host-based, instance-based firewall, whereas NAT gateway is for complete subnet.
Okay.
NAT gateway is a static one, and NAT instance, I think it's a dynamic instance, it's dynamic IP. NAT instance is chargeable. NAT gateway is a chargeable the static IP because of that, and NAT gateway is not NAT instance is not chargeable.
NAT
Are
gateway
you
is
sure NAT
managed.
instance is not chargeable? Are you sure?
I think NAT instance is chargeable.
The NAT gateway is not chargeable, huh?
No. Both are chargeable. Thing is that NAT gateway is managed and taken care by AWS, whereas NAT instance is taken care by ourselves.
Very good. But both are chargeable. Like on what basis both are chargeable?
Like instances like where the running time. NAT gateway means the elastic IP.
Elastic IP we use, yeah.
Okay.
NAT instances means the time we use
NAT
for
instance we can use the dynamic IP, like a IP range. What we can define private IP. Private IP we can use a range with that.
Okay. And now let me ask you.
I have one doubt in this question.
Yes.
Sir, NAT gateway is not chargeable, right?
Both are chargeable. NAT gateway is also chargeable. NAT instance is also chargeable.
So, but while doing the lab on that, so we assign it to the IP address. We do not charge on that.
No, NAT gateway uses elastic IP. No.
Yeah. So elastic IP which will provide its NAT in that NAT gateway is not chargeable. Only the providing will be charged for the duration of the time which we will use the elastic IP.
But when you are associating NAT gateway with your elastic IP, then there is a charge, no? So $0.05 there will be charge.
So the duration which will be the providing the IP, that only we will charge. The gateway which will be processed, we will be
No, gateway creation is free, but the moment you can you create a gateway without an elastic IP? Tell me one thing.
No.
So yeah, we can provide it by at the duration which we will work on that. Otherwise, the gateway will be linked, right?
No. Have you did the gateway lab, NAT gateway lab?
Yes.
So when you create a gateway, will it not ask you the elastic IP?
No, we can stop at that certain time after the use of.
But then that is okay. You can you will not stop. But when you want to use the internet, the NATing, so without an elastic IP, how it will work?
Yes, at that time we will charge for that.
So which means what? Obviously, we are using NAT gateway. Definitely, you need to associate. Without that, what is the other use case you have? Tell me.
No. Previous question was that at the stop and terminating, what is different? So someone.
No, that is different. That is different question. This is different question. This question we were asking about NAT gateway versus NAT instance. Okay.
Yeah. So if we will stop NAT gateway, then it will not be charged, right?
Stop NAT gateway, no. When you disassociate the elastic IP, then there's no charge.
Yeah.
Samir, when the NAT instance is getting charged, I mean, so why it is when it is
NAT
chargeable?
instance,
Because if we
NAT
are using
instance is chargeable on your virtual machine, not on the IP. Your virtual machine is not
I
free. No.
didn't get it.
The VM is
I
not
didn't
free,
get
right?
it.
Devnath, VM, virtual machine is not free, na?
Right.
So you'll be paying for the virtual machine, not for the public IP.
Okay.
So NAT gateway is
Question
charged
was
based-
your question was what is the between NAT gateway and NAT instance? So NAT instance, when we are integrating with VM, the VM is chargeable on basis of that NAT gateway is chargeable, but NAT gateway itself is not chargeable, right?
No, NAT instance.
Because
and NAT
when we are configuring the NAT gateway, NAT instance. I'm sorry, extremely. So when we are configuring NAT instance, we are providing a dynamic IP address range like 15 IPs or 20 IPs or something. Segment I'm using subnet. So in that scenario, it is not chargeable. But when we are integrating that NAT instance with the VM or with the VM, in that scenario, it will be chargeable.
Yeah. So basically, it is like this. When you use NAT instance, the charge is not there for the Elastic IP because you're not using Elastic IP, you're using a public IP. So the charge is not there for public IP, but the charge is there only for the virtual machine. But when it comes to the NAT gateway, you're using the Elastic IP. And when you associate that Elastic IP, then only the charge is there. So whenever you associate the Elastic IP for the NAT gateway, they charge on the hourly basis, depends on the region, starts with $0.045 is the charge, and which they apply for the NAT gateway. So that is how it will go. Okay. The next question. So how many VPCs you can create in AWS environment? How many?
5.
How many subnets you can configure in a single VPC?
100.
100.
No, that is buckets. No,
Bucket.
that is separate.
Subnets.
Subnets are listed.
Single VPC, how many subnets?
200, sir.
200 subnets. Very good. Very good. So what is the difference between what is the difference between virtual private gateway and
How many, Samir? How many? I didn't hear that
a
question. How
single
many?
subnet in a in single VPC 200 subnets is what you can
200.
create. Okay. And what was I was asking something?
Difference between
Difference between virtual private gateway and internet gateway. Last week only we learned about VPNs. There we learned about virtual private gateway.
Internet gateway is a what to say connection. It's like a main door for accessing the internet.
Don't tell the same thing to the main door. I just given it for an example. In interview, if you say main door, they will show us the main door. We just need to tell the technically. So basically internet, okay, I will tell the technical word also so that you will remember the technical word. Amazon VPC is nothing but it's a, so if somebody asks you what is the internet gateway, so internet gateway is nothing but which allows the outgoing traffic to your internet. That is called as internet gateway. Virtual private gateway is nothing but VPC side of your VPN connection. Okay, if you want to establish a VPN connection to your internal network, then we say VPC side of a VPN connection is a virtual private gateway. And if you want to allow the communication to the internet, then we should have something called as internet gateway. Don't say main door, small door, short door.
Communication between the internet, connecting to instance, right?
Yes. So, if you want in detail, if somebody asks you, can you explain in detail what is internet gateway? When in interview they ask you, so what you need to tell is that so internet gateway is horizontally scaled, highly available VPC component. You need to say that it allows the communication between your VPC and internet. So whenever you want the VPC should communicate to your internet, so internet gateway is required. So there are two major purpose of internet gateway which you need to tell. One is for route table, nothing but if you're to provide your VPC route table to your internet traffic, and next thing for your NATing if you want to do. So these are the two major purpose while we use the internet gateway. But in a single statement, what is internet gateway? it is an horizontally scaled VPC component which allows communication between your VPC and internet. This is what you can tell when somebody asks you about internet gateway. Okay.
Okay.
I think you are thorough with all these question and answers. So tomorrow we'll start the database topic.
Samir, 1 second. VPC gateway, can you tell once again?
Virtual private gateway you're asking?
Huh.
Okay. So what is virtual private gateway? So your internet gateway is nothing but it is used for your communication to your internet, right? So if you want VPN, virtual private network, means that day we learned, do you remember VPN, IPsec VPN, site to site VPN we discussed?
Yes.
So whenever the VPN traffic, not the normal internet traffic, whenever the VPN traffic want to communicate to your VPC, that time you need a gateway called as virtual private gateway. Okay. Whenever you want internet traffic to be communicated to your VPC, then we need to have something called as internet gateway.
VPC, okay.
Understood, right?
Yes.
So that is the difference between virtual private gateway and internet gateway. Now people will ask you, what is customer gateway? Answer. Last week only I told. What is customer gateway, guys? Last week we discussed.
Border gateway. Communication between the source and...
No. What is customer gateway?
Private tunnel between AWS database to customer place.
AWS database.
Sorry, AWS region.
Yeah, so very good. Customer gateway, very simple. It's nothing but it's a physical device or a virtual appliance on your customer on-premises environment. Okay, so customer gateway is nothing but your customer gateway is a device which is running on your on-premises environment. So they use the firewall or any kind of a network or any kind of a virtual appliance. So that we call it as customer gateway device on our on-premises environment. Okay. Okay. So these 4 things you revise properly, and for the people who has not completed storage, so that for them the next week storage will be there. So they will be they'll be having the storage class, but as it is 10:30, the same batch will be continuing. So tomorrow same. There's no difference at all. Tomorrow we are starting a topic called as database. What is the topic we're starting tomorrow? It's a database. So anybody who has not have the basics understanding on the database, just learn the database and just go through with the fundamentals of database. What is RDS, what is SQL, what is Oracle, and all those things, so that you'll get some knowledge. Okay.
Sir, when the storage class will start?
Next week, Soumik, I will tell you the time. It will be at 8:30. So I will send you the link for that separately. Okay. So tomorrow, as it is, we are continuing with the database. So do not miss the class. Okay.
Okay. So storage will happen separately, right? For
yes,
10 AM
yes,
okay.
Yes.
And Samir, the questions and the answers what you discussed right now, do you have any document for this?
Yes, I have all the interview question and answers and all. So I will be sharing you post completion of the course. And meanwhile, also I'll send you some for some people like who has completed, they can start in the LMS. They have the question and answers attached for the exams, like assessments. In that it is already there. Apart from it, after that I will give you the question and answers. Not an issue.
Okay, Samir. Thank you.
Okay, everything will be provided. Don't worry at all. Anytime you ping me, I'll be always there to help you guys. Okay.
Okay, Samir.
Thanks guys.
Samir.
Yes.
Samir.
Sibling.
Can you share us 8:30 links for review? I wanted to attend the 8:30 batch.
8:30 में अभी EC2 चल रहा है. अगर किसी को फिर से सीखना है EC2, they can come back. No problem. So tomorrow we are starting the last
link
topic.
Link.
Okay, no problem. I will share you. No problem. I'll share.
Link share in WhatsApp. Also, if I require, I can join immediately.
Okay.
So
10:30
morning or 8:30 evening?
8:30 morning.
Morning. Okay.
WhatsApp group पे भेज दो सर.
Okay, हाँ.
This is 8:30 morning tomorrow, you're saying?
No, Vishal, that is for he wants to revise again EC2
Oh,
topic.
okay. It's not meant for us. Okay.
No, not for everyone. Whoever
For
wants
revision
to.
only.
Everyone, everybody with a general class which is 10:30, so we'll mail.
But see,
This is
don't
for
get
open one.
confused. Don't get confused. For everyone, it is 10:30 only. There is no change.
No change, yeah.
Anybody who want to revise that completed topics like EC2, again there is in a batch of 8:30. It is going on. So if you are most welcome if you want to join again and learn from starting. Okay.
Okay. Bye bye.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Samir.